the final version of Buddhism I'm going to talk about developed in Tibet, which is a mountainous region in the Himalayas north of India. It developed an incredibly spiritual culture with thousands of monasteries, and this is in a region with a relatively small population. But 20%, fully one-fifth of the population, entered monasteries and became monks, whereas in most Theravada countries, it's closer to 1 or 2%. So that gives an indication of how unique and deeply spiritual Tibet was. In 1959, however, China, which had claimed the territory of Tibet, invaded the country. The Tibetans were unable to fight off this much larger foe, and so the Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, who is, of course, well known throughout the world, fled Tibet and took refuge in India, where he remains to this day. And primarily now, insofar as it's practiced, Tibetan Buddhism exists in India, among the community which has formed around the Dalai Lama, because the Chinese army made a concerted effort to destroy the religion. It razed the monasteries and killed many monks, destroyed religious artwork, etc. In recent years, because of pressure from the international community and the negative attention they were receiving because of their harsh treatment of Tibetans, they've eased back somewhat on the direct persecution, but they're still gradually destroying Tibetan culture, in part by importing many thousands of ethnic Chinese people to live in Tibet. Also, they've reopened some of the temples, but now they're oriented more toward tourists than they are authentic centers of spirituality. And they have appointed a Panchen Lama, who is second in terms of authority, spiritual and political authority, to the Dalai Lama, of their own choosing, who's effectively their puppet, and they have an intention of appointing the Dalai Lama once the current Dalai Lama dies, at which point they would have complete control over the religion. These are some images of Tibetan monks, and this gives a sense of the landscape of Tibet, and this is the most famous temple in its capital city. And so the Dalai Lama is regarded as the reincarnation of a bodhisattva which has led Tibet since the late 16th century. Traditionally, he's been both the political leader and the religious leader. And of course, he's world famous today, the current Dalai Lama, for promotion of peace and mutual understanding and advocacy on behalf of the Tibetan people. In addition to its elevation of the lamas, Tibetan Buddhism is unique in other ways in terms of the means it uses to try to achieve enlightenment. In a sense, it tries to achieve detachment from worldly things by overloading the senses. So it uses very vibrant and colorful and intricate paintings called mandalas, and very complex and energetic hand movements called mudras, and intricate chants called mantras, and even tantras, which are sexual practices, which I'll say more about in a bit, as a way to kind of overload the senses and allow practitioners to transcend this world and to achieve a higher spiritual plane. So Tibetan Buddhism seeks to achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible, and rituals and practice are designed to harness all our energies in this direction. Everything, even our most base desires, can be transformed toward this ultimate goal of liberation. Artworks are used for inspiration, instruction as meditation objects, in which the qualities that the bodhisattvas embodied are contemplated on in the hope that the meditator may develop them. This is an example of a mandala, and this one, interestingly, is actually made of sand, and it's not glued down, so obviously it's not going to last. and that reflects again the Buddhist teaching of the impermanence of all things. So, to summarize the Buddhist worldview, nature of reality is that all things are cyclical, both the universe and individual human lives, and all things are also interdependent and impermanent. They're all connected, and everything is always changing. Human nature is that we lack an essential essence, and so, again, in contrast to Hinduism, Buddhists do not believe that we possess an Atman, and it's the fact that we don't recognize this essential truth that we remain stuck in samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth. Then the problem then is that we're prevented from realizing our true Buddha nature, from achieving enlightenment by selfishness, by attachment, and by craving. The solution, if you follow Theravada, is to meditate, to become a monk, and devote your life to overcoming this ignorance and selfishness. If you're a Mahayana Buddhist, then you achieve the same end through devotion to a bodhisattva. And then Tibetan Buddhism is something of a mixture of the two approaches, in which you are aided by bodhisattvas, but also engage in various practices and meditation to help you along